Whoa, well, it's time for some more Bleach Soul Resonance, and I want to make a video talking about some of the new information we got as of me waking up, which is there's a new rarity. We're going to take a look at this. We're going to take a look at some of the animations because, something to talk about. But new rarity in the files already is pretty interesting. So what I would say is that this is a bit curious, and I don't really think I've seen people talking about it. Obviously, this is going to be a free-to-play character, but, how do I want to phrase this? So, I guess let's just read it and then we'll talk about it. There's a new SR Plus rarity in the files. My personal guess is this is for base Grimjow's rarity. We will probably see that in tomorrow's patch notes. So you can see we have the summoning animation for Szayel LMAO I here, but we also have the summoning animation, more importantly, for Grimjow. Grimjow, the SR Plus, has a summoning animation, which means when you pull him, he is going to have this animation package in here. So why did this happen? Well, to me, and I know people are disappointed. They're like, oh my god, Grimjow's a DPS as well. He's just going to get replaced by the new Grimjow. He's like, this and that, and, it's so disappointing. One, it's literally not the dev's fault. No glaze, but this is Shueisha's fault. Just full stop. Two, this is interesting because it continues to support the theory for me that Grimjow might end up being a lot better than we expect. We're going to get him at B6 for free, I would imagine, if it's anything like Rangiku. Even if it's like B4 and then we just pull him from the same banner that he's on, because most people are going to pull for Grimjow, most people are going to pull for Szayel LMAO I, if Grimjow is featured there. But it's all to say that if we get him at B6, I mean, how much better than Yoruichi could he possibly be? I mean, we could be talking about a character that's better than Yoruichi at B4 if, like, this guy's getting a summoning animation, right? I mean, that's a big deal. It's not nothing, right? One of the reasons I say it's not nothing is because this is probably one of those things where they had this already cooked. They had a lot of these character assets already made, pre-built, so they need to use them somewhere. So if this ends up being a case where it's like, okay, the devs said we have to do it this way, or not the devs, the Shueisha said we have to do it this way, and SR Plus is going to be their way of sort of sticking a middle finger to Shueisha and saying, okay, you want to make us, make this an SR, you want us to split up Grimjow into an untransformed and transformed version, well, we're going to say fuck you and make him essentially like a baby SSR. Could be interesting. Let me turn on the sound here just to give us a listen. That is so fucking cool. That is really cool. That looks really good. Yeah. I love when beams feel malleable, like where they feel very distorted and like unclean like that. That's a lot of like why I like certain Dragon Ball. Like, I'm not super into Dragon Ball Super the show, but I really liked Super Broly, particularly. Super Broly is probably when Dragon Ball Super really clicked for me. It's when like the blues started looking good finally, God form started looking good finally. I know this is like heresy to some people. A lot of people just like, Dragon Ball Super in general. I'm a little bit of a hard ass, but, it makes sense. I grew up with Dragon Ball Z, so my expectations of the series are different than someone who grew up with only Super. But let's check this one out, too. That's pretty fucking cool. I realized just now that I had my mouse on the screen like an idiot. Oh, very, very unfortunate. But okay, so those are some animations. The thing I want to talk about though is this right here, which is that we are getting a new rarity, and if they are going to use this to sort of circumvent a lot of the annoyance that we've felt with Shueisha, I'm all for it. Shueisha has, of course, been like a thorn in the side of the Bleach developers. I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to sort of explore this avenue, because right now we just kind of don't know what this could mean for the game. I mean, here's like the reality of like this situation is like, sure there will be a time where it's like, okay, in 4 weeks Grimjow comes out and you use Grimjow here and you use Pantera Grimjow in here and you just rattle off all these pieces of content with an awakened Grimjow essentially. But if there is ever a time where we can give players, especially new players, access to a character, access to a team that they don't have a lot of ability to ramp up, like if you pulled on Soifon, which I've said before, Soifon is extremely worth pulling on. Like you should pull on this character. You might not have a Yoruichi ready to go, like just immediately. Like I think Yoruichi is as a free-to-play character, as a standard character, she is a character that does require a lot of investment. If SR plus, quote unquote, for Grimjow is the chance at stabilizing a team that otherwise, like, my Yoruichi has, again, 5 core stamp, 3 weapon stamp, 3 boundaries, you know what I mean? Like my Yoruichi's DPS, her ability takes a lot more than this character who could just be being given out for completely free. I mean, like I said, don't forget, Dangiku is extremely powerful, and they gave her everything that she released with like everything, right? So I see this as a net positive. I see this as a very good sign, by the way, that the developers are willing to bend around Shueisa's meddling so that we can have a better experience. Does it mean that I wish he wasn't a DPS? Of course not. I wish this character was replacing this one right here. I think Nemu is the perfect character to sort of get swapped out by a base form Grimjow, but if this is the idea they had for Grimjow, if this is the vision for the character that they wanted, then, it sort of is what it is. That said, I do get the people who are like, well, he's just going to get replaced in a month, but it's a shoulder shrug. I mean, it is what it is, right? I mean, it's so hard to really be mad when ultimately it wasn't BSR's decision. They didn't come into this going, hey, what if we just fucked Grimjow over? What if we made Soifon's team worse by not having a transforming Grimjow on it? You know what I mean? Like, it's tough, but that's the reality. They had a vision for Grimjow that he would be our half anniversary character and he would transform and he would have all of these things, but ultimately Shueisha told them no. They demanded it, and then they also demanded characters be moved up. They demanded that we'd get Mayuri and Soifon instead of other characters who might have been more hype as well. Like, it is what it is, right? We do have to remember that as far as the timeline for this game goes, and we can, just sort of look, as far as the timeline for this game goes, we tick down the weeks, we get, they said that they had plans up until at least 2028. So when people are talking about, well, is this game racing to end of service if they don't do this amount of money and this amount of, this game is doing well. And it serves to remember that we have confirmation that they're building hype back up. They said, all right, Shueisha, you got what you wanted. Now it's time for us to cook. Now it's time for us to drop TYBW teasers. Now it's time for us to do this and that, right? They did say, and all that huge list of characters that they were like, vote on who you might want to see in the future so we can gauge hype. Just like I said, remember that they're building back for the long run. Before we talk about, oh, what if this game goes away? What if this happens? What if that happens? Hey, man, like, that is not what we're being shown at all, right? We're getting new content every, few weeks. We're getting new events every few weeks. They're racing to fill the gaps in the quality of, the game. You know what I mean? This is still very early times, and they continue to show consistency in that regard. So I'm not really worried as far as that goes, but as you sort of look at stuff like this, just remember that it is going to be kind of annoying that, you know, Shueisha medals like this, but we should be getting a pretty ramped up, a pretty accelerated, exciting schedule coming out of Szayel banner into Half Annie, into, you know, the June releases, which look like Audible +1, like I don't know. It's unfortunate, like I said, it's unfortunate that this has ended up going this way, but if SR Plus is their solution, if essentially making a character, you know, a mini SSR for the sake of throwing a middle finger to Shueisha, I can't be mad. I really can't be mad. I think it's a cheeky way to sort of fight back. So hopefully Grimjow is, at least base form, is exciting. Hopefully he does a ton of damage. I want to see him match Yoruichi at least. I just want him to be another option, because I think that's the most fun if he's just another option rather than replacing or not being good enough. Because that means for new players they get the most amount of choice possible. You know, I saw people being like, well, what about our resources? You know, this is resources, we have to raise a character. I mean, I got 400 here. I've got a bunch of stamina, or a bunch of like Tamahagane. My stamp nexuses are building back. I've got a billion Koban and General Arts and Captain's Insights and all this shit. Like, once we're in like week 2 of an event, once we're here where we're just waiting for the next thing to happen, I'm literally just wasting my stamina a lot of times. And I know you might see my spiritual nourishers and be like, well, you have so much like nourishers. I don't even really use them. You get one with the monthly, like $5 monthly, as part of a daily. I'm not even using them though. Look, I've just been saving them because I didn't have really anything. I didn't want to like speed rush out a bunch of like grinding content just so that when Szayel gets here, I can make the video, I can do gear and stuff. But like all of these days, I've just been sort of wasting on Captain's Insight, Tamahagane. Sometimes I'll do like the support Omomori. Sometimes I'll grab some of these. I actually need to grab some of these today because obviously we know that Grimjow will be a strike. But yeah, you really do run out of like things to grind as we settle down. So I don't really think that like, oh, you know, the grinding, that your resource management is gonna be a big problem. Like, that's not counting the fact that I gave this guy level 100 recently, so it's not even as much as I could be, right? Like, I literally went in and did this one like on video. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's a problem. Super excited. I love that there's animations for summoning. I want more of those. I want more of them with everything. I hope that at some point, if the game goes long enough, SR Plus becomes like the new SR, and all these characters who are a little less hyped get fun summon animations. I just think it's cool. But kind of like Dokkan Battle and, you know, URs and TWRs and then LRs and such like that, right? But yeah, pretty fun. Like if you like the video, subscribe to the club. I've been Lone. We all gonna make it. Peace.